Hi. My webcam for some reason doesn't record video because I don't know, it's not functional. But today, class, we're doing World War One review, the beginning of the war. So, I'm just gonna talk. It started with a lot of tension between Germany and Britain because Germany um, kind of was jealous of Britain's navy and its industry, whereas Britain started to see Germany's growing navy as a threat, and also their steel industry, and they thought that Germany was a threat to their foreign market. So there was a lot of tension between those countries, and there was also tension between Germany and France, um, because France still hadn't forgiven not Britain. France still had not forgiven Germany for taking Alsace and Lorraine. One sec. That is how you spell that. Yeah. So Germany took Alsace and Lorraine in the Franco-Prussian War. So France was still pissed about that. And they were both fighting for colonial places in Africa and the Middle East. So they were not friends either. And then the Ottoman Empire had been like slowly dissolving for a really long time, and but this was bad. I mean, because there were two important straits there, the Bosporus and the Dardanelles, that none of Europe wanted Russia to get. So yeah, that was the thing that united everyone. So, and then also a thing I thought was semi-important is the Serbians were like the worst off of all the weird ethnicities of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire because they had a different language. A lot of them were Orthodox Christians instead of being Catholics. So that's the thing. I thought that might be on the test or something. I don't know. Okay, and then Bismarck, before this time, he agreed with Austria and Russia that they wouldn't have any crazy radical movements against each other. This was called the Three Emperors League, but then when Bismarck left or died or whatever happened to Bismarck, this thing was no longer a thing. So that increased like chances for attention. Yes. Things that happen. Oh yeah, okay. And then France and Russia, they were not, like, them being friends was a really weird thing because they were extremely not alike, but Russia needed France's money and France liked having an alliance essentially, so France and Russia became friends. And and then no one liked Britain because France and Britain were all against each other in imperialism, and then Britain and Russia were against each other, and then like the Boer War, obviously like the impact of that was that there's pretty much like an international consensus that no one liked the British, so Britain realized that they had to shape up, so they started reconciling with everyone. So they to be friends with France, they acknowledged that Britain and France decided to like coexist in North Africa, and then they became friends with Russia somehow. But okay, the Triple Entente, which was the thing that included Britain, they were less impactful and strong than the Triple Alliance, just because Britain was a wimp and they didn't actually make any formal military alliances. Okay, so then, okay, so Germany was seeing that Britain was doing all these things. Germany started getting a little worried, so William II called this meeting called the Moroccan Question that essentially was trying to embarrass France and upset French relations with the British, but it actually didn't go well, and only Austria-Hungary sided with Germany, and everyone else did not. And after this, there was this thing called the Second Moroccan Crisis, where the Germans wanted the French Congo because France took Morocco. So Germany basically sailed their ship over to the French Congo and told the French to give them the land back, and then France, with the support of Britain, said no. And nothing happened. Like, there wasn't a war or anything, but this made everyone really pissed at each other. These are just events that make people pissed at each other. Okay, and then this all led to the Second Balkan War. So, at first, everyone was against the Ottomans because they were weak and I guess people wanted the land or something. And then, so all the little small Middle Eastern countries, like right there, that's not Middle East, but like all these Eastern European countries right there, they were all like, let's fight together against the Ottomans. And then once they defeated the Ottomans, Bulgaria wanted too much of the, like, war spoils, so then everyone else that fought with them was mad at Bulgaria, so they all attacked Bulgaria, and that's what happened. Okay, then was the thing that we, like, started learning about called, it wasn't called, it was just the assassination of Francis Ferdinand, obviously. We know about this, Gavrilo Princip, Gavrilo something. He was part of the Black Hand. Yes, that was a thing. He was Serbian. He assassinated them. And then, yes, so there's this thing called the blank check that happened after this, where Austria was convinced that Germany would help them help them fight the Serbians, and Germany was convinced that Britain would remain neutral, which is one of the reasons why they, like, began the war in the first place, which was not true. Okay, so then, after this happened, Austria was mad at Serbia, so they demanded 5 things from Serbia. One was that they stopped publishing anti-Habsburg stuff. 2 was they would end all Serbian nationalist organizations. The third one is that they would get rid of all the officials and army officers that Austria-Hungary wanted them to. And 4, they wanted Serbia to allow them to just, like, march right into Serbia to search out, like, any potential threats to Austria-Hungary. And then 5th one, they demanded a response to these demands in 48 hours. And Serbia was totally wimpy compared to Austria and everyone else, so they couldn't win any war against them. So, Serbia agreed to all of these agreements, but they didn't want Austria-Hungary going into Serbia to search out threats because that's kind of invasive. But Austria was mad at this, so they declared war on Serbia. So that is Declaration of War number 1. Declaration of War number 2. Well, this resulted from a thing where everyone wanted to keep Belgium and France neutral, but Germany did not want to keep Belgium or France neutral because they wanted to march through Belgium, and they wanted to occupy some French border territory and have Russia back down. So none of these things happened. Therefore, Germany declared war on Russia and also on France. And then Great Britain declared war on Germany. Okay, that was confusing. Okay, basically, everyone wanted these neutral countries, but Germany did not want this, and Germany told everyone that they didn't want this, and then no one listened to Germany, which is why Germany declared war on Russia, and then war on France, and then even though no one wanted them to walk their troops through Belgium, walk their troops through Belgium, they did anyway, and then Britain, which was their protector, got mad and declared war on them. So, Germany's plan of war that addressed the possibility of a two-front war was called the Schlieffen Plan. They wanted to deal with France first before Britain can do anything about it, because remember, they didn't think that Britain would get involved in the war, but they did, and then they would turn on Russia. And no one anticipated a long war. They thought they'd be home by Christmas. Obviously, there weren't any long wars for the past 100 years. So, yeah. Wrap up. The World War I began as a result of all these tiny, like, Eastern European countries getting mad at each other for stupid things. Because they were being kind of rash because they had little to lose on, like, relative to the larger powers. But Austria-Hungary drew in Germany, and then Russia drew in the British and French, which involved all the huge powers, and that's the thing. So before this war, the normal, the status quo was towards international economies, but national politics, where every nation kind of had to take care of itself, and nations were driven by imperialism and the desire for alliances. Because before this time, the English had portrayed the French as untrustworthy and conniving and gross, except for in the early 20th century, all of the British publications turned to create Germany as the enemy, and the Germans responded to this and made the British look like derpy Hufflepuffs that had a lot of weapons. Yeah, I'm a really bad teacher, but even if this didn't help any of you, it helped me. So stop making fun. But, yeah, at first, everyone was really excited about World War I because they thought it was going to be over, and a lot of people were like, nationalism! This is cool, it involves everyone! But we all know that was not a thing that happened. So, that's the beginning of World War I. That could have been a 5-minute video, but was a really long one because I suck.